The following is a Claibs online production. Lunch with Claibs and Joe on claibsonline.com.
And a good Monday afternoon to you and a early Merry Christmas. This is Lunch with Claibs and Joe, driven by Munganess St. Louis Acura, Munganess Alton Toyota, powered by Ameren, Illinois, and sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. I am Joe Roderick, joined alongside by Mike Claiborne. Claibs, what's going on?
All good, Joe. Just getting ready for the holiday, if there is such a thing. I mean, I'm not a big holiday guy. I think it's fun for people to get a kick out of it, but I'm not one that, is going out chopping down somebody's Christmas tree to have in my own front room or anything like that. But it's different this year because at least with the holidays, you would see friends and family you normally don't see during the course of the year. But that may not even take place for a lot of people. So we'll just kind of figure a way to get through it.
Yeah, it's you're right about that. So you're saying that that you're not the guy that's on the shirt right here. That's not you. The holly jolly.
That's I enjoy holiday cheer. Don't get me wrong, but I am not a guy who goes out and puts like 18 million lights on his house or has a whole closet full of ugly sweaters and, has reindeer tied up in the backyard. I don't do all that.
I was told that you got quite a few phone calls after that shirt.
Yes.
Yes.
And we got to figure a way to get these things out there. And
I have a meeting. I have a meeting tomorrow. Tomorrow at 10:30, I have a meeting with somebody about that. I've already started the process of being able to do that. And I imagine early 2021 Claibs, we will have a Mike Claiborne Flag Day shirt ready to go on the Claibs online store.
Well, you know what? Maybe we ought to look at different holidays like Valentine's Day and Flag Day and the 4th of July and have some sort of commemorative merchandise available for people to have. It would be unique. So we ought to think about that as well.
Yeah, the request that I got as well for those, I have a feeling that next year around the holiday season there will be quite a few people around St. Louis and maybe one down in Memphis that will be wearing the Claibs
break it out. There you go. and one of the other things, we need to do that. I just want to get one so I can give my significant to see her wear it. And I think what we also do, whenever we make wagers with people, they have to wear the shirt. If they lose, they got to wear the shirt.
You know what? And speaking of wagers, we'll get into the picks here in a bit with the NFL.
I think I made a huge move this weekend, if I'm not mistaken.
As I'm looking at what people picked, I'd have to go back. You sent your picks in late because, as I mentioned on Weekend Joe, and I'm not going to say late like you didn't send them in afternoon on Sunday. You sent them in significantly after Andy and I recorded Weekend Joe on Friday because you and Brian Hoffman thought it was more appropriate to just chirp at me about where I am in the standings than actually put your picks forward on Thursday night.
It's kind of hard. I know looking up like that at people who are running away with this thing it gets tough on people. I understand that. I hear that's how it is. I've never been in that situation, so what can I say?
Right. No, it's cool. Hey, we can move on to a different sport. The Blues actually are the Blues are making the headlines today here in town. Oh, as we're 4 days away from Christmas, what's unfortunate is, we should be talking about, we should be gearing up for their Winter Classic game up in Minnesota that was supposed to be taking place next weekend, and hopefully that's something that next year they end up rescheduling and putting on the books up there. That was supposed to be at Target Field, right? Is that where?
I believe so.
Yeah, where the Twins play. Hopefully that's something that they redo next year. But the Blues have been in the news, and it started, we talked about it a little bit last week with the divisions, and we'll get into that in a second. But it really started last week when Alexander Steen announced his retirement. 15 years in the NHL, 11 of those years with the Blues. And what's nice now is when you can look back at a guy's career like Alexander Steen, knowing that he got his name on the cup here in St. Louis and it feels like, whatever had happened or however early he had to retire, it was a huge accomplishment on his career for what he did in 2019.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. And I think the other element, Joe, is that he earned his name on the cup. Okay. I mean, he battled through a ton of injuries. He played when he could, but he was a very important part to that success of that team, compared to some guys who were in and out and maybe not big contributors, but they were on the team. But in his case, when he took over the fourth line responsibilities, that really kind of put this team over the hump. So when I look back at his career, I think a couple of things. One, he might have been the most complete two-way player. He could skate, he could shoot the puck. He was a very good defender. He understood the game, and he understood. He had great instinct, and he had just enough of a air of tenacity where he didn't have a problem giving it back to somebody. Wasn't a fighter, didn't fight a lot, but wasn't afraid to grab a guy and chirp a little bit. And I thought that all those things made him into a very solid player. He's not a Hall of Famer. He's not a Blues Hall of Famer, any of that stuff. He's just a very good, serviceable player. Now, as I say that, I think he still has some hockey to offer because he's a very, very intelligent person when it comes to hockey. He's got a great hockey sense. And certainly there's going to be a place for him in the front office in the National Hockey League team. Now you say, well, maybe you want to be a coach. Well, I don't know. I think there's some guys in the game that coaching probably doesn't work for as much as assembling and recognizing talent. And I think on Steen's case, he's going to be a guy that I think Doug Armstrong will lean on to get his thought and opinion about certain situations. They already were doing it, so it won't change. The only difference is he won't be in uniform. He'll be just a civilian like you and me, only he'll be a smarter hockey guy than you and me.
It just so happened the day that he announced his retirement, he was unavailable for comment because his wife just had a baby. So he, Doug Armstrong had mentioned that they tried, that they gave him his time off, they let him go home and try to rehab, and that he was struggling to do things like get out of a car. And it was that at that point he just realized that there was no point in trying anymore. There was no point to keep pushing himself the way that he was. Just 15 years in the NHL that's a damn fine career.
Yeah, it is, and he should be proud of it. And normally when guys start having kids, they go look for work. Now he's walking away from work, so it's a great situation to be in when financially you can do that. But he given everything he could to the game of hockey. And, the challenge that he was dealing with was A, the physical challenge, and B, his ability to continue to play on a good hockey club. And I don't think that was going to happen.
Yeah. So with him, that now Pietrangelo leaves as one of the captain of the team. Alexander Steen now gone from the team. So it'll be a new look. And Tarasenko won't be starting the year with the Blues. So a team that went into the shutdown last year as one of the best in the NHL is going to have a completely different look when they get the season started again. And say what you want about Pietrangelo, but Ryan O'Reilly was the leader of this team the past few years since he came to the Blues. And it was announced last night. Jeremy Rutherford tweeted out that O'Reilly is going to be your next captain of the St. Louis Blues, which I don't think surprises anybody, especially after Steen's retirement.
Well, yeah. And if you really thought somebody else was going to be the guy, then you really haven't been paying attention to this hockey team. And the captain thing to me in hockey has a different meaning than maybe what we see in other sports. Other sports don't designate a captain like we do in hockey. And basically, he's a spokesperson for the team, especially when it comes to the media. He's always a guy that tries to lead by example. He's the conduit between coach and players. I mean, there's a lot of things that go with it. And other sports have it. They just don't designate a person publicly to be that individual. I don't think there'll be a leadership lack on this hockey club. I think there's some other guys. I think Braden Shen would be a guy you'd have to take a look at. Colton Parayko's been around for a little bit, and he's understood what it takes. So I don't think there's going to be a lack of leadership. Now, you've got Kyle Clifford. I think Kyle Clifford, who they signed right at the beginning of free agency, a guy who's won a couple of cups with the Los Angeles Kings, a tough player who certainly can provide some leadership because he's been there in the toughest of situations. So I think they'll be fine. And then there'll be somebody else who will step up who we're not even talking about or thinking about, who's going to assume a little bit more of that leadership role. David Perron could be that guy. I mean, so there's a lot of people out there. Bottom line is, the only time they listen to you is when you produce. So it's incumbent upon those players to produce before they can be considered leaders.
Well, they'll have a lot of time for leadership during those plane rides out west because the 2001 regular season divisions were kind of made official. We saw what was hinted at, and I believe the only change that was made was Minnesota and Dallas were flipped on it. But the Blues will be part of the Western Division for the 2021 regular season. Anaheim, Arizona, Colorado, Los Angeles, Minnesota, San Jose, and Vegas. Those will be your opponents for the St. Louis Blues in the shortened season next year. So a lot of trips out west and possibly a lot of different start times too. It seems like the NHL is going to work with, or I guess work in favor of the fans in St. Louis and in the Central Time Zone and help with those start times out west and maybe make those teams out west start a little earlier than they're used to.
Hey, with no fans, you can play at 10 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I don't think it's as big of a challenge as some would think. I was told that there may be 16 games at 9 o'clock of the whole schedule. You think about the national schedule as well. So I think, it'll be fine. We're grousing about something that probably won't be as big of an issue. And throw this into the equation. You're going to play these teams 8 times, but you might play them twice in one sitting. So you may go out to Arizona and play them twice, take 2 days off and then maybe go up to LA and play them twice, So it's kind of like baseball where, a team would come in and play for a 3-game series or something like that. I think we're going to see it on a 2-game variety in the National Hockey League, which saves on travel, which saves on the risk of maybe getting infected. So there's a lot of pluses to it. A lot of familiarity. I'll tell you this, that second game of a 2-game series might be a little feisty, especially when you finish in their building and then have to come back and play in yours. This is where I think the Blues might have to find a little bit more of a physical presence because there are going to be some guys that are not going to like each other before it's over with.
I tell you what, that if they do go with a schedule like that, those second games against a team like Vegas, that with Pietrangelo being there with the Golden Knights, I want to see what that back and forth is going to look like.
Well, it's not going to change. I mean, I think that just because Pietrangelo's out there, I don't think it's going to make a great difference because you know why? They got Ryan Reeves out there too. So anybody who wants to get cute with Petro, they're going to have a price to pay. And that, to me, was one of the problems with the Blues, especially like in a series if you would have played Dallas. I mean, they had Ben running around, knocking Petro around, and nobody did anything about it. I've never seen a captain take as much abuse as Petro did because the Blues didn't have anybody they can answer. I know people want to run off the physical play and the fighting in the game. You better have one. And in this day and age, in the 56-game schedule, you better have maybe 2 of them because teams are going to see how far they can push it, and you better have somebody to make them accountable.
The Central Division, Carolina, Chicago, Columbus, Dallas, Detroit, Florida, Nashville, and Tampa Bay. When you look at that, is there any, I guess, regret by the NHL or what goes into the decision to go with Dallas over St. Louis in the Central?
Well, I think if you're the Blues, you probably feel like you have a better chance to win in the West. Think about it. Okay, you've got Colorado and Vegas. I think they're in, okay? The Blues should be in. And now all you're going to do is beat up on the Kings, the Ducks, the Sharks, and the Coyotes. They're all teams that are trying to grow and develop. So you got some, I won't say easy points, but some points that are more attainable than they would be in the Central Division, where there are teams there that are all kind of around the same level, just dangerous enough to make it interesting for you. So I get why the Blues went there. From a logistics standpoint, it would have been easier to do the Central, but I kind of get why the Blues went there.
This is Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Ameren, Illinois, driven by Munganess St. Louis Acura, Munganess Alton Toyota, and sponsored by Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. And Claibs, I think people need to realize just how important Ameren, Illinois is to our communities during, especially during the month of December.
Well, there's no question about it, Joe. When you think about all the things that Ameren, Illinois provides, obviously electricity and gas, it's a time at this time of the year, certainly, that you appreciate it. Now, I think the other thing that's important here for us to remember, and we haven't had it, and hopefully we won't have it, but when weather becomes a factor, how efficient Ameren, Illinois has become in making sure they restore power. They make sure people are aware of what's going on. They have a number of informational videos that you can come to on our site and check out and just see how they do things, where they basically educate people on what their mission is and how they do it. And I think when you look back at all the other things that they've been involved in community-wise, they are truly a fabric of what Illinois is all about, especially Southern Illinois, and how they relate to their customers, how they inform their customers, and how they really want to make sure that their customers have an opportunity to save money. I mean, they've got a number of energy saving programs that you certainly look at and you say to yourself, wow, that's pretty cool. And they're always on the cutting edge. They're award winning in various categories within their own peers. And they make sure that they find ways to continue to advance and making sure that the customers are getting the best quality, state-of-the-art service that they can find.
Absolutely. Hey, do want to let people know, you mentioned they can find those videos online at claibsonline.com. Just scroll through. You'll see the Ameren videos up there. A few other things that we have available for you at claibsonline.com. You know what? Christmas Eve is Thursday. Christmas Day is Friday. And it's a perfect opportunity for a lot of businesses to shut down or just take the week off and make it a short, lazy 3-day week. That's not what we're doing here on Claibs Online, as we have so much up on the website today. Yesterday, we debuted our first Ferrario face-off. I keep calling it the Ferrario fast break, and Claibs, I'm going to tell you why. When I was making all of the stuff for that and we were going back and forth, I was working on having on finding a time to book Stu Durando from the Post-Dispatch on my show. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking Billikens basketball with him as I'm going and I'm talking with Alex about all of the hockey stuff. So I had fast breaks on the mind because I was thinking about those SLU Billikens. But no, it is the Ferrario face-off that he'll be bringing to Claibs Online each and every week. You sit down and talk with Brian Anderson of TNT today. That's up on the website that people can go watch and listen to. And then Jay Jr. has episode 2 of Fairways and Greens Claibs Online edition with Smitty, Jeff Smith of Walters Golf Management.
I want to stop for a second and talk about Smitty. I've known Smitty since the beginning of the All Sports Radio, which is coming up on 30 years. And to watch what he's done and how he's grown the business of golf in St. Louis is remarkable. And his relationship with Jay goes back that far as well. I don't know where we would be in St. Louis if it wasn't for Jeff Smith and Denny Walters keeping golf available, affordable, and abundant for people who want to play. And I would say that they are solely responsible for the local growth of golf by providing so many great facilities. And obviously with Jay and him having the show for so many years, can't say enough about Smitty, and I'm glad he was part of what Jay was doing with the show.
Hey, last week, before we get into the college football playoff and bowl season, last Wednesday, the Supreme Court announced that it would hear arguments in the long-running NCAA dispute over student-athlete compensation, granting and consolidating 2 cases, the NCAA versus Alston and the American Athletic Conference versus Alston, that seek to overturn a decision back in May by the U.S. Court of Appeals. The case would be argued early 2020 with a decision expected at the end of June. So this will be the first time in over 35 years that the court has heard an antitrust matter involving college athletics. And Claibs, when you and I were talking about it earlier, you said that this could be bigger than what Curt Flood did for the game of baseball.
There's no question that this is something that could change college sports forever. And I want to go back and talk a little bit about how the Curt Flood thing changed baseball. Curt Flood, for people who don't know, he lost in the Supreme Court. Okay, he lost. But Major League Baseball realized that they couldn't continue to do things in the manner that they did. Hence, they changed and created the free agency as we know it today. I don't know how far the NCAA wants to go with this. And if they lose, it'll blow up the whole thing. If they win, they're going to still have to step back and find a way to narrow the gap between what we see now and what should be in place for these athletes. So it's going to be a landmark decision. It's going to be something that's going to change college sports. And it's probably going to be the next step to abolishing the NCAA as we know it, because we already are starting to hear the rumbling from the Power Five conferences about their displeasure with how things are working within the NCAA. Now, the NCAA has done one thing, and they've done it really well. They're really smart about it. They go out and sign these TV deals with the networks for these long periods of time to ensure that everybody will stay together. My question is, what if they secede from the NCAA and then go back to the networks and say, hey, why don't we do a deal? This way you don't have to put games on that don't mean a hill of beans or anything. This way you can schedule games to best serve what you're trying to do. I think, Joe, we're just a matter of years away from that, maybe less. But with that and the Supreme Court ruling that will be rendered next year, I think the NCAA is starting to see the beginning of the end as we know it today.
Well, they came out this weekend. They came out yesterday with their Final Four for the college football playoff.
Biggest crock of shit I've ever seen.
It is Clemson. You know what, though? As you call it that, nobody was surprised by what they saw.
It's the NCAA. It's what they do.
So that's what makes it worse, is that everybody was expecting it to be this awful, and they did nothing to surprise us. You will get Clemson versus Ohio State, Notre Dame versus Alabama. Claibs, you've been around longer than I have. When was the last time Notre Dame won a big playoff-level football game?
Probably when Lou Holtz was coaching, which is 30 years ago. I mean, every time they've had a chance to really live up to the expectation of Notre Dame football, they've fallen, and they've fallen hard. I mean, they've been embarrassed. All right. Yeah. And it's not even close when they get in the big games. And it doesn't have to just be against Alabama. You name them, and they've been beaten. And I think for them to be in because of Notre Dame. Now, I know they said, well, we beat Clemson. Yeah. And Clemson broke up all your furniture this weekend.
They also beat a Clemson without Trevor Lawrence.
Exactly.
So, and they took it. Did that game go to overtime, or did it go down to the final possession?
I think it went to overtime.
Okay, so you beat a team without Trevor Lawrence, who might be one of the most complete college quarterbacks that we have ever seen, and you had it without him. You went to overtime. With him, you got beat bad. Therefore, the committee really should have looked at that as 2 losses for Notre Dame. They should not have looked at them as a 1-loss team. They should have looked at them as really being 9-2 on the year, and then given a look to a team like a Texas A&M, who was 8-1 on the season, whose only loss came to Alabama at the in week 1 of the year.
I think A&M got robbed in this situation. And I know Jimbo Fisher has kind of made it clear. And you know, we're sitting here harping on Notre Dame. Ohio State has no business in this thing either. I mean, they barely got to 6 games. They kind of jerry-rigged the whole setup. And they're whining about, well, we didn't have all our players. Well, that's not our fault. I mean, everybody's playing shorthanded in some way or another. So Ohio State shouldn't be in. Notre Dame shouldn't be in. A&M should be in, and I think there's a combination of Oklahoma, Cincinnati, and some other schools that would certainly warrant an opportunity to participate in this tournament.
Right. Coastal Carolina, it's cute that they're 11-0, but
you know what, though?
Do you want to see that? Do you want to see them fed to Alabama?
Yeah, but here's the thing. They play who was on the schedule. They had a competitive schedule. And you know what? What happens when they get in the tournament? Who knows? Who cares? But they certainly warranted an opportunity. I mean,
they did put that impromptu game with BYU on the schedule too, and they did that. They went out of their way to make a game happen.
So here's my question: are we rewarding teams because of their logo and their history, or are we rewarding teams that are playing competent, competitive schedules that are dealing with COVID like everybody else, but giving us a quality effort every Saturday?
I mean, these are purely for ratings.
Crock, man. But you know what? The NCAA has prided itself on creating anarchy. They think this is good for the game that we're having these discussions. All it does is say that they're a bunch of hypocrites, but we already knew that. But the way this whole bowl thing or the playoff thing is set up, I'm disappointed. I hope Alabama hangs 60 on Notre Dame. And we may see a matchup of Alabama and Clemson again. I don't think Ohio State's got enough to beat Clemson, especially with the injuries and the issues that they're having. So it may be anticlimactic, but then again, Clemson's having a tough time stopping people. Alabama show they're having a tough time stopping people. So we might have a game, a championship game of maybe 55 to 54 or something along that. We can see 100 points scored in the championship game.
Have you looked at some of these matchups that are out there for the bowls this year? That you have a 4-6 Kentucky that is going to be in the Gator Bowl, a 4-5 Ole Miss that's going to be in the Outback Bowl. These are bowl games that were once prestigious January 1st bowl games that don't mean much anymore because they're not the Final Four. But you're having teams, because of the situation we're in this year, that went 4-5, sub 500 records that are in these bowl games purely because there were no rules this year and the teams could invite the bowls could invite whoever they wanted.
Well, you have to throw in the fact that some of these other schools who probably would qualify have elected not to go any further.
Right.
They shut the program down. So it's obviously a unique situation that we're all having to deal with. They could be some entertaining games, though. I think that's something we might want to take into account. They could be entertaining. I really look at how the matchups are going to shake out. You know, if you have a David against Goliath, then who knows how that thing may unfold. But if you have two evenly matched teams, who knows? I wonder, though, what they can learn from this. So I've got a suggestion. And I've been harping on this for years, and nobody listens. You know, I always grouse about the non-conference schedule and how we go out and find these blood donors for all the wrong reasons. Why not, if you are a bowl team, why don't you play a team that was also in a bowl in a conference comparable to you and put them on your schedule for next year? Now, I know some would say, oh, we can't do that. You know, they schedule these games so far out in advance. Yeah, but you know what? They can cancel games a lot quicker. So you don't have that excuse of saying, well, you know, what will we do about this? Hey, look, you buy that team out. You put on a legitimate schedule. There's two things you should do. You should play a comparable conference team that was in a bowl game, and you should play a bordering state school. Now, Missouri plays Arkansas. In the past, they played Kansas. They played Illinois. They played Iowa. They played Oklahoma. So you have those surrounding schools that you can play.
Arkansas is also in the SEC, so
right.
that shouldn't count. That really shouldn't count.
You're right.
There's no reason why they shouldn't play Kansas or Iowa or Illinois every single year.
And those schools should be playing bordering schools. And in this day and age of traveling and obviously dealing with COVID, fans still want to get in the car and go see their school play compared to playing somebody in Wyoming or playing somebody in a place you're never going to go to. I think it will create interest, because here's the thing that we all need to take into account. Because of COVID, trying to get fans to come to your games, I think is going to be more challenging than you think. We're seeing it in the NFL. Ironically, a lot of those teams who are allowing fans to come in aren't selling out the games, even with limited capacity. So when you see that unfold, you have to say to yourself, wait a minute, we better start paying attention, because they're going to have to sell their products again, because fans have found other things to do. They found it's easier to watch it on TV. They have other things they'd rather be involved in. So the big game isn't as big as it used to be. So I think we're going to have to see some teams get real creative in creating fan interest again.
Mizzou will be playing Iowa in the Music City Bowl. That game, that bowl game, will be on. Is that December 30th? Yeah, Wednesday, December 30th. The Iowa Music City Bowl. I do just want to point out too, there is a Cheez-It Bowl this year, and there is the Duke's Mayo Bowl this year. So
somebody had some advertising money they wanted to spend, and who knows, maybe they'll get their money's worth.
Speaking of advertisers, we want to welcome onto the show one of ours. He is the home loan expert. He is Ryan Kelly, and he joins us now. What's going on, Ryan? Merry Christmas.
Oh, Merry Christmas. I should look at my hair before I jump on live with you guys. Everybody's going to give me some trouble for that, but thanks for having me. I am really excited to be here with you guys. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to you, all the viewers. And here we go. New year.
Yeah, we're going to turn the page on 2020 here fairly soon, Ryan. And with that, a lot of hope and a lot of anguish as far as people looking forward to the new year. It's still a good time to buy a home. And that's one of the things I wanted to ask you about. You know, there was a time where the home buying had a season. I'm not sure if that's necessarily the case anymore. And it was, as we're also learning, as people turn the page and look at their finances, refinancing doesn't have an off season anymore either, does it?
It doesn't. You know, you're exactly right. There was a time, I mean, I was a real estate agent before I was in the mortgage industry 20 years back. And I think that gives me a little bit of an upper hand on some because I understand the home buying, the home selling process so well, starting my adult career there as a realtor. And it was the old saying, it was just Memorial Day to Labor Day. That's when people sold houses. And as a realtor, then you would take the winter months, Q4, Q1, and you would get your marketing plan together. You know, what neighborhoods are going to target? Should I buy a U-Haul and wrap it? You know, let's get some flyers out. Let's get some stuff going. But that's just not the case anymore. Homes are legitimately still coming on the market here in December and selling day one. And that's just shows you the appetite. There's so many people out there right now looking to make a move. We've all been in our houses longer than we ever imagined, more hours a day than we ever imagined this year. And we put some use in these houses. And maybe you've gotten pregnant and your family's growing, or maybe you just can't stand that pink bathroom tile anymore, or whatever it is. Maybe you don't have to go to the office every day anymore and you can work in a garage like I'm doing today. But, you know, we all have different needs and different wants, and our things have changed this year. For a lot of people are just looking to make that move. And we are predicting, I think most industry experts are predicting a record-breaking housing year for 2021. Just so many people moving. And if you're one of those people that are even considering it, thinking about it, it's not too early to start looking at that process. Let's get you pre-approved today, like legit today. And that way, you know your interest rate, you know your payment, you know the price point you should look at. And if that perfect house hits the market the first week of January, boom, you're ready to go. Write an offer, you're pre-approved. They see you're pre-approved from the home loan expert. They're going to accept it. You're good. Next thing you know, you're moving in within 30 days or so. So if you're thinking about buying a house, get you pre-approved now. There's no longer a season. These are popping on all the time, and we're expecting January just to really hit the flood and just come at us.
And you know, with the other element that comes into this refinancing, some people might want to get some cash. They might want to lower some debt a little bit. It's also a time to maybe get a refi working as well. And as you mentioned, getting pre-approved can certainly help you along the way. How important is it now to see people that you see on a regular basis say, hey, you know what, I can find a better rate? You always seem to have some very good rates when it comes to you getting that debt reduced a little bit. How important is that now for people?
You know, one of the main reasons I love this industry, being in the mortgage industry, is being able to help improve people's financial situation. It really is nice for the first-time home buyers or just to help people buy their dream house, their final house, whatever it is. I love the purchase side of it as well. But when you're able to go in and do a refinance, redo the existing loan on their current property, they're not moving. You're just redoing their loan, a refinance. And when you're able to do that and reduce somebody's interest rate, for example, right now rates are at historic low levels, and we're locking loans consistently in the twos, 30-year fixes in the twos. And when you're able to go in and drop somebody a point or so on their rate, save them a couple $100 a month, and maybe even use some of that equity to pay off the credit cards, to pay off the student loan debt that's just lurking, get them out of those second mortgages, those risky home equity lines. When you're able to do those things, you truly can change their life. And those are our clients that write the letters. I mean, the purchases do too, but they tell us those stories of, I was paycheck to paycheck, never realized how bad it was, but I was missing a paycheck away from not being able to pay the credit cards. It was no way to live. And you did what you said you were going to do. And you came in, you dropped our rate. We pulled out some extra cash, paid off our credit cards. We were able to skip a month or two of payments. And you read those stories, and that's where I think you get the most satisfaction in my industry in the mortgage lending is the reward is, you know, helping borrowers, whether they're buying the house or greatly improving their financial situation with a refinance. If you have a current rate right now that's not in the twos, we should talk. You know, put us to work for you. Let's look at your options. And we're really upfront. We'll go through your comparison side by side. If it makes sense, we're going to get you locked in and get that loan wrapped up 30 days or less. Not all of them, but a lot of them. We're moving them pretty darn quick through the pipeline, and people love that.
Well, Ryan, we thank you so much for jumping on with us and your continued support of everything we're doing here at Claibs Online, and wish you the best going into 2021.
Hey, NBA's coming back.
That's right. Tomorrow night, baby.
Who's your team? Who's your team?
All ready to go.
I'm going to go with Stephen Curry for my son. I mean, that's his favorite player right now. So Golden State for him. But I mean, I love the Pacers. It's no fan. We're a big sponsor, big supporter of the Pacers, have been for years. I'd love to see some things there. My favorite team would be the one that moves to St. Louis. That would be my favorite team. That's the one I'll be all in for. Call them the Rhythm. You have the Rhythm and the Blues. The team will light off. It'd be spectacular. But anyhow, NBA's coming back. We've been enjoying all the preseason at my house. Instagram on NBA is hot. I mean, they always do a great job putting out content. Excited to see them coming up. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Thanks for letting me jump on, and we'll talk to you really soon.
All right, Ryan. Have a great holiday to you and your family, and stay safe, sir.
You as well, sir. Thank you very much. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Ryan. That's Ryan Kelly, the home loan expert. Find him online at thehomeloanexpert.com. Clay, we could skip over next week. You know what? We'll talk plenty of NBA coming up next week on the show. And I know you have Rob Fisher. Have you already recorded with him, or is that today?
No, we haven't talked yet. We will do it sometime this week. I really wanted him to get a game under his belt, just to give me a feel for how the things are going to look and kind of look at the outset. They've had a couple of preseason games already. By the way, Nick Bolton has announced that he's not playing in the last game. He's going to forego it in his senior year and get himself ready for the draft.
The Ryan Kelly mentioned the Warriors as for the NBA. I tell you what they did last week or last season as far as tanking and going out there and getting a top ranked draft pick to join everybody else. It's going to hurt the fact that they lost what's his name again for the
Klay Thompson.
Klay Thompson again, but if they get everybody healthy, that's just another monster out west that can do some damage.
There are so many teams in the West that are going to make this interesting. The addition of Kelly Oubre to the Warriors, Weissman's development, they're going to be a team that's going to be reckoned with in the second portion of the season. You can't overlook Denver or Utah. The Phoenix Suns are going to make a move and make their way into the playoffs. Of course, you have the Lakers and the Clippers. They're in the Portland Trailblazers. I personally think, Joe, the Western Conference of the NBA is the deepest conference in any sport. NHL is second as far as their Western Conference is concerned, or Pacific Division, however, the old West as we knew it. But the Western Conference in the NBA is stacked. There's going to be a 50-win team that won't make the playoffs.
It'll
be a 40-win team that won't make the playoffs.
That'd be something special if a 50-win team missed out on it this year.
Yeah.
But yeah, you mentioned the Utah Jazz. Rudy Gobert signs a 5-year, $205 million deal, an extension with the Jazz, the 2-time Defensive Player of the Year. Giannis signed his extension last week, making him one of the highest paid players of all time. When you look at the difference in their paychecks now, are they that comparable in talent, do you think?
Well, they serve different roles. Rudy Gobert is one of the best shot blockers and rim protectors in the game, period. So he's one of the top 3 or 4. So you're paying him like that. Giannis has got so much going for him that he's one of the top 4 players in the game, period. So for them to be paid commensurate to what their skill level is, I got no problem with it. And I think you're starting to see teams make a sole commitment to 1 or 2 players like that in their organization, and then it's up to them to go out and build around them to make sure they remain competitive. You have to have 3 in order to win the championship. 2 can get you there, but 3 gives you a better chance to win. And we're seeing it with Giannis. Now he's challenged the Bucks to say, all right, go get some more good players. We saw with the Lakers, it was LeBron and AD. So here comes Kyle Kuzma. Then they have a couple of other players to step up and make a contribution. Golden State did it when they had Steph Curry and Draymond and Klay Thompson. Now they've got Draymond, Klay Thompson, Allen Wiggins. Weissman will be a good player. And as I mentioned, Kelly Oubre. You look at the Denver Nuggets, they're a similar situation. Maybe when you look at Porter Jr. and the big center that they have, they've got 3 legitimate players. So that's where this game is going. The question is, how do you massage the salary cap and making sure you can get them all fitted under? And this is a league that always finds a way to be creative in making sure they remain competitive. I'm not sure if there's another league that has as many competitive teams as the NBA does right now.
Hey, I lied about skipping the NBA or the NFL this week on the show because there was one story that I had to make sure that we got to, and it has between Randy and Jerry Rice.
Yeah, I saw that.
For those that might have missed it, apparently Terrell Owens has a podcast. I had no idea that he had a podcast, but Randy Moss was on it recently. I'm surprised T.O. has any guests on the show and just doesn't interview himself each and every week. But he had Randy Moss on the show, and Randy Moss says that he is the greatest wide receiver of all time. He put T.O. number 2, and then he said Jerry Rice was probably 3rd or 4th. And word got back to Jerry Rice, who was not happy about that, who posted on Instagram their stats side by side, telling Moss that he just got mossed by that. So I ask you, who's the greatest of all? Who do you put? Is it Rice or is it Moss?
It's still Jerry Rice. I think if you want to really split hairs here, Randy Moss was a physical specimen. He had size, he had speed, he had strength. He could do everything. The difference between Jerry Rice and Randy Moss was Jerry Rice worked on being perfect. Jerry Rice was a flawless player. He did all the off-seasoning things. He did all the things and made sure he was a good player. He was very fortunate to be in a very pass-friendly system. And, the thing about Jerry Rice is, Jerry Rice had some good quarterbacks, and here's the best example. And I liken this to Kurt Warner. When you watch The Greatest Show on Turf, how many guys did you see have to make sensational catches? You didn't.
None. Yeah.
When you watch Jerry Rice, he's always in the crossing pattern. He was always making very nice catches. Now, he made it look easy, but he had some quarterbacks that could put it right where it was supposed to be, and he took it from there. Randy Moss played with a potpourri of individuals who wouldn't necessarily be on page 1 of great quarterbacks. But from a physical standpoint, there's no one who was more gifted physically than Randy Moss. Everything else goes to Jerry Rice. His work ethic, his desire, the complement of players around him. He had a lot of great things working for him. So I'm going to have Jerry Rice as my guy because he didn't drop balls either. Randy Moss would drop 1 or 2 from time to time. But you're splitting hairs here on the greatness of both of them. I think Moss was just more of a physically imposing person that there weren't many corners that could line up with him and take him on because of his size and just his overall athletic ability.
And finally, before we get things wrapped up here for this week's show, a feel-good story in sports this past weekend. All eyes were on the PNC Championship, which Claibs I didn't know was a thing until this weekend.
It wasn't until this weekend.
It had been around. It was the PNC Father-Son Challenge, and I guess this year it was made into a championship event, because we saw the debut of Charlie Woods teaming up with his dad, a guy named Tiger Woods. And they didn't win, but they made all the highlights and they made all the headlines this past weekend in the Father-Son Challenge, which in some cases, if you go back and you look at it, it was the professional was the son playing with their dad, and you saw a lot of professional golfers with their kids out there, and it was a lot of fun to follow along with this weekend.
Yeah, it was. And Justin Thomas won it. They didn't mention his dad was a club pro, so I mean he had a little bit of an advantage. But let's face it,
mom was on the bag, by the way. His mom was on dad's bag this weekend.
Okay. Let me just say this. This tournament had no notoriety before now. Thanks to Tiger and his kid, now it's something that tournament got more exposure this weekend than it has in the whole time it's been in existence, thanks to the Woods family. And where they go from here with that, I don't know. But I thought it was a nice way to end the golf season as we know it, because they'll be playing for keeps in early January, and they won't have the kids on the course at that point. But it was a good story. We had one other thing.
I was going to say,
who's
you
in
know,
first place in this whole thing, this football thing.
I gotta look up all the picks on this, but I was gonna go back to Tiger and say there are so many tournaments throughout the PGA, and not the major ones, but there are tournaments that wonder each year. Well, one, for example, the PGA down at PGA National, the Honda Classic down there, they don't know year in and year out if Tiger's gonna play in that event, and they haven't for a while, and they usually don't know until the week or 2 weeks before. But an event like this, when Tiger can do something that includes his son, I think if this becomes an annual big event, I don't think Tiger ever misses this if he's healthy.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's something he can enjoy doing. I mean, it's huge for Nike. I mean, yeah, you don't think they sold some apparel this weekend for kids? So, I mean, and, I think there's some other sponsors of Tiger that will probably say, hey, we need to make sure we're involved on that. And now you're reaching a whole different audience. You're reaching parents, you're reaching mothers, you're reaching kids. It's a great stepping stone for the game, especially going into the holiday season.
Do you know who won the PNC Father-Son Challenge in 2019?
Nope.
It was Bernard Langer and his son Jason. So
didn't know Bernard was married or had kids. So there you go.
So it shows you the notoriety and shows you where that 2020 will be remembered as the day that this tournament was probably put on the map this week. Claibs, I just went and looked at your picks, by the way, and I think that you did go 5-0, which I don't know if we've had anyone go 5-0 all year yet. I feel like that has not been that has not happened. And as I look here, I'm looking at where Hoff went too. And you know what? I think Hoff also went 5-0. So I think you and Hoff, I think Hoff still has a 1-game lead on you.
That's all right. We'll settle it up. We're just putting some distance between everybody else who's trying to qualify for whatever.
And it's been a 2-person
Are you awarding bronze medals here?
What?
I'm bronze. I mean, is it pewter? I mean, what medal are you going to award everybody else?
I'm in 5th place out of 5. I really don't care anymore about this. I mean, I'm just doing it now to fill a segment on the show for Weekend Joe, because I'm so far back. I just don't care. I've lost such interest in this. It's like yesterday watching football now on a Sunday when both my fantasy teams are out of it. It's just background noise at this point. Like I
haven't been there very often, but I hear that's what happens.
I wish I could call DirecTV and just ask them for a refund for the Red Zone these final weeks, because there's just no reason to watch it.
Well, maybe you can find something else that they can exchange it for. Who knows? I'm
glad that NBC got their shit together and they're back on. So you don't.
Tegna and Gannett and the carriers of AT&T. Yeah, that right. Was good.
So at least that's something going. Speaking of Channel 5, you have Art Holiday coming on this week, I think.
Art Holiday is going to join me later this week.
Is Coleman joining that interview too?
I don't know. We'll see if we can get Vince on the phone, see if he can go back to his days. And what was that, 85, I guess? Yeah, that was fun. Now that Art is now no longer on the air, you're looking at the longest tenured guy in St. Louis media.
Really?
It'll be 40 years in February.
Jeez.
Is when I started.
Good Lord. All right. Well, I mean, are you talking on air? What are we talking here?
On air in St. Louis. Longest run.
Okay. Hey, that's one thing we talked about last week, and we are compiling a list right now, because you had mentioned last week on the show that 91 was the first year of St. Louis sports talk on the radio. And we talked to a lot of people this past week trying to figure out like the exact date, timeline of that. But we have started putting together names of people that you're going to go back and we're going to try to set up interviews with here throughout all of 2021, looking back at 30 years of sports radio in St. Louis.
It's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to talking to a lot of the folks, and if we can find some pictures of those people from those days to where we are now, that's going to even make it more fun.
Rammer owes me a picture. I texted with Rammer last week that he was supposed to send me a picture, and I'm probably going to bother him about it as soon as we sign off today. But I know that he has a picture of the two of you together from your first year calling Billikens games.
Yeah,
And
he's got that picture. I've got it somewhere. I just can't figure out where it's at. I have it somewhere, but I know it's one of my favorite photographs. This is when we were doing games at the old Kiel Auditorium, and it was a lot of fun then. One of the greatest experiences of my career is working with him because we've had a lot of laughs. We're best friends, and we were just having a good time back then, man. We were young guys, single, just living it up. And to watch him grow and watch our relationship grow doesn't get any better.
I thought he and Earl were on the call last night from the studio.
I listened to that. Yeah, I listened to that. And I text Rammer. I said, hey, do you think the officials can hear you say it was the worst call ever from where you're sitting? Because that might be the one thing. Well, they stuck Travis, I guess, because Rammer wasn't close enough by to make a comment. So they gave Travis Ford a technical last night.
Yeah, Billikens lose their first game of the season yesterday up in Minnesota, 90-82, the final score of that one. Claibs, you have yourself a wonderful Christmas. I know we'll talk much this week, but we will not be back talking to the people until next Monday at noon.
Looking forward to it, sir. Have a great holiday. And to all of our viewers out there, be safe. Have a great time. Use a little common sense. And we look forward to having you be part of what we're doing with Claibs Online. Support our sponsors as well. And we'll get out of 20 and get into 21 with a better life in front of us.
Our sponsors, Ameren, Illinois, the home loan expert, Ryan Kelly, and Munganast St. Louis Acura. Munganast Alton Toyota, we thank them for all of their support throughout the 2020 year. Our final show of 2020 will be next Monday at noon. He's Mike Claiborne. I'm Joe Roderick. Have a Merry Christmas, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.